Irvingman! Clark Kent is at a local furrier's place of business. He's holding the Daily Planet Citizen of the Year award.
As much as I'd like to have it, I'm sure it's not for me.
But it may be for one of your employees, Dan Grayson.
Dan? Oh, he's been in charge of my first storage department for 10 years. You couldn't find a better man.
Sounds like an amazing guy. Let's meet him.
Hello.
Grayson?
Yeah.
Dan Grayson?
Yeah? Who's this?
Just an old friend of yours, Dan. A real old friend.
Look, either say who you are or
Don't bother to hang up. I'll do it. I've got all I want to know.
Our mystery man likes to crack nuts with one hand. Would it surprise anyone to know that's going to be important? That call has Dan a little distracted. And the door locks behind him. The vault is airtight and the door is on a time lock. But it's worse than that.
That place is filled with gas. A special moth preventative. No human can take it for very long.
What do you mean by very long?
Well, an hour maybe.
Dan is pretty well doomed unless they can find someone to override the lock. There's an intercom and an alarm in the vault for just this purpose, but right now they aren't doing Dan much good. The company that made the vault isn't local, so they can't help.
What we need's a Jimmy Valentine.
Maybe I can get one for you.
I had to look that one up. Jimmy Valentine was a fictional safecracker who first appeared in a 1910 play called Alias Jimmy Valentine. 3 movies and a radio serial grew out of that humble beginning, and now that I've seen the plot and story, I understand why audiences like the guy. In the story, he's a professional safecracker who's trying to start a new life with a new identity, even though a Lieutenant Gerard type is still trying to catch him. When a child is trapped inside the bank's hat-proof, airtight vault, Jimmy pulls out his old skills and rescues her. Now his identity is known, so he decides to surrender to the cop. The cop basically looks him up and down, says, "Who the heck are you?" and walks away. Unfortunately for Dan, Jimmy is still fictional.
Superman, thank heavens. Over there, hurry.
At last we know the truth. Superman is really Jimmy Valentine.
I had my mind on something else. I wasn't thinking, and the coat caught on something. I gave it a little yank and pulled the door closed. Mr. Foster, I tried it.
Thanks, Kent, but you needn't have bothered. Superman was here.
If Dan looks and sounds familiar, he should. He went on to have 2 sons named Wallace and Theodore. They called the elder son Wally, but when he was little, Wally couldn't pronounce his little brother Theodore's name, so it came out Beaver. The name stuck. Mr. Foster is giving Dan the rest of the day off. I don't know what makes him think that's necessary, but there it is. And Clark takes him out for a cup of coffee to help him unwind. Then it's home to the wife and kid.
Oh, home so early?
Hey, this is a family show. Tone down the smut. How about it?
Since when did you start keeping banker's hours, Mr. Grayson?
I pulled a real dandy today. I locked myself in the vault.
Oh, Dan, are you all right?
Sure, I'm fine, but the vault came off second best. Where's Tim?
Oh, he's upstairs.
Wait till he hears who saved me today.
We won't get to meet Tim yet. There's someone at the door.
Well, Danny boy,
Luke Maynard.
in the flesh.
So you were the one. The man on the telephone.
One and the same, Danny boy. Have some walnuts.
Luke starts talking about what guys think about in prison. Now it's time to meet Tim. It's Tim. Here he comes.
What was it with you,
It was 15 years ago. I put it out of my mind.
Out of a lot of other people's minds, too, huh?
Dan did some time in prison a long time ago. Luke starts showing him pictures of his old cellmates. He says, "This guy sends me $20 a week. This guy sends me 15."
Why should they pay you anything?
Why should they pay me anything? The same reason you're going to pay.
I wouldn't pay you in wooden nickels.
It's a kind of insurance against people learning you're an ex-con.
He chases Luke away, but as we saw, Tim heard everything.
Hi, Tim. Hey, what's the matter? You been fighting with that Baxter kid again?
What is this, both of you? What's happened today?
Oh, nothing, Peg, nothing. Come here, son.
It gets worse. Luke shows up at Dan's job the next day. He wants more than a few bucks a month from Dan.
All you have to do is a little favor.
There's no such thing as a little favor for you.
That's all. All you have to do is help me heist some of these skins.
The furs? Are you crazy?
There's a little cafe around the corner. Meet me there tomorrow. Lunch. We'll talk.
As if it'll be a one-time thing. It never is. Go to your boss and the police. If you go to him right now and help prevent a robbery, I guarantee he'll respect you and overlook your past. But what kind of Superman story would that make? Back at home, his son is avoiding him and there's someone at the door again. This guy cannot get a moment's peace.
Hi, Dan. Oh, this is Lois Lane. We both work at the same paper.
How do you do?
Oh, aren't you going to ask them in, Dan?
Oh, yes, of course.
Tim is still morose, but they don't seem to notice. They tell Dan the good news about the award.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kent. You better get yourself another boy.
Oh, don't be modest, Dan. Besides, it's too late. The first editions are already on the street with the news.
You can't do a thing like that without asking me. My answer is no. I'm sorry, but now, if you don't mind.
Of course, Dan, some other time.
Next day at the office, while Clark, Lois, and Perry are trying to figure this out, Clark gets a visitor, a Mr. Grayson.
Hiya, Tim. Guess you're Mr. Grayson, too, aren't you?
Tim begs him not to tell the world that his daddy was in jail. Clark is a little surprised, but doesn't show it. He assures Tim that he wouldn't do anything to hurt Dan. This award is supposed to be a good thing. What did Dan do, anyway?
It's the usual story. Wrong bunch of kids. Borrowed a car one night. Supposed to belong to one of the kids' brothers. It didn't. I thought it was just for a joyride. It wasn't. It turned out to be for armed burglary. I got 3 years.
That's piddly stuff. And he was a teenager. Since he got prison, he was over 18, probably just barely. Mr. Foster seems like the kind of man who would be willing to let that go by, but even today, a lot of people look sideways at anyone who's done time for a couple of grams of weed. When someone gets out, we tell them they've paid their debt to society. Then we keep charging them more with situations like Dan is in, where he doesn't dare tell someone he's an ex-con or he wouldn't have gotten the job and probably wouldn't have his family. Now his old pal Luke wants to take all that away from him for a big score. And the fact that Dan feels he either has to go along with Luke or go to the police and lose everything anyway illustrates the fact that society does not consider his debt paid.
Now I gotta pay for it the rest of my life.
Pretty much. He tells Clark his dilemma. Clark says, you may not have to bring the police in if we can bring Superman in.
Listen, Dan, the next time this Luke calls you, tell him you're willing to do anything he says. Pretend you'll follow any orders he may give you. Then you get in touch with me right away.
Needless to say, he has a plan.
Here's how it happens. Instead of leaving after work, you hide in the vault room. At 12 o'clock, exactly 12, you take care of the copper. How you do it, that's your worry. Just do it.
And then?
You're through with it.
Sure he is. At least until the next time you need money. Dan has to know this is never going to stop. But he knows something Luke doesn't.
And Danny boy, no double cross. It wouldn't be healthy for your wife and kid.
Oh, dude, if I'm Dan, you're never going to make it to whatever trap Kent has planned for you. As most viewers know, I'm not violent, and I've never deliberately done physical harm to anyone in my life. Threaten my family like that, and I'll happily make an exception. And by the way, I'm a scuba diver. Nobody'll ever find you.
Well, of course, you won't go through with it. You go right home after work and you stay there. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand.
If TV has taught us anything, it's taught us that there's a 50-50 chance Dan won't go home. Instead, he'll try to stay and help. Well, he did go home. Superman arrives at the vault right at midnight, but Luke has already been there and gone with the furs. That's not what he told Dan. And he knocked out the night watchman. There's nothing for Superman to do but call the police and an ambulance. It's cold outside. Need a coat to answer the door. That's one bit of etiquette that I'm glad went away because I don't own one of those.
Grayson?
Yeah?
Police officer. Like to have a little talk with you downtown.
Perry is ready to yank the award and feels like the paper has a black eye over this. Clark tries to explain what I said earlier about a man paying his debt to society, and he begs Perry to hold off a little longer so he and Lois can investigate this thing further. Now that the whole thing is out in the open, why doesn't he tell Perry about Luke Maynard and the shakedown? Because that would make the most sense, and we do not do things that way in Metropolis.
Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Your wife told us we could wait for you.
Sorry you had to wait. I'm looking for a job.
Any luck?
What do you think?
Mr. Foster fired him. He actually believes Dan could do that to him. If he was going to, why'd he wait 10 years?
Dan, where were you last night?
That's what the police want to know. They don't like my answer.
Why not?
Because they don't want to believe I was out just wandering the streets most of the night.
Well, he didn't try to stay and help, but he didn't go home like he was supposed to either. Look, folks, when Clark Kent tells you to do something, you just do it. You don't go off and do your own thing. Everybody got that?
They think I locked myself in the vault on purpose, just to make sure the door would be broken for a few days.
Because he knew Superman would just happen along at that time and rescue him. How stupid are these police?
Look, Mr. Kent, let's face it. The way most people feel, once a con, always a con.
I just spoke to Inspector Henderson. They've got Luke Maynard at headquarters for questioning.
We better get over there. Sit tight, Dan.
Getting tired sitting tight.
Is he going to do something stupid again?
That's okay, Inspector. Always glad to cooperate with the police.
Oh, Kent. It's about time I heard your part in all this.
Later, Inspector. I've got something else I have to do right
I
now.
hope you do have something. And not later, but now.
You heard the man, Lois. We're being held for questioning. See you back at the office, Jim.
Jimmy isn't going to the office. He's going to do what we all know Clark wanted to do and follow Maynard.
Turn off the caves a couple of 100 yards ahead. Once we get there, we'll be in the clear. Danny Boy will be holding the sack.
That answers that question. He's doing something stupid.
Hold it!
He says, you're going to show me where the furs are, then we're going to the police. As I said, he's doing something stupid.
I ain't showing him nothing.
That's far enough.
Is it?
Don't make me shoot, Luke.
Shoot? Go ahead.
As I said, he's doing something stupid. More specifically, he's bluffing. Why he couldn't shoot Luke in the shoulder or the leg to prove he means business, I don't know. Truth be told, neither does he. And now he won't get to find out. Luke has a cave deep inside the mountain where he's keeping the furs.
Guy get killed here and nobody'd ever know the difference.
Luke, we was followed. That kid reporter, I saw him pull away.
Sort of changes your schedule, doesn't it, Luke? Jimmy calls Kent, Kent calls Superman.
So what? I know about Superman. One thing his X-ray vision can't see through is lead. So guess what I got this cave lined with?
Because a lead-lined cave in the middle of nowhere isn't going to make him suspicious. You got an F in thinking things through, didn't you?
Can you give me the exact location of that mountain? Good work, Jim. Now look, you get hold of Inspector Henderson. I'm going to try something else.
He's going to try Dr. Pepper for the first time.
We passed a ranger station a couple of miles back. Jimmy could call Kent from there. Superman could have the message by now. In fact, he could be here by now.
I want information, I'll ask for it.
Oh, sure, Luke, sure. There's nothing to get nervous about, is it?
That's right. Nothing.
When you're in Dan's situation, you take your little pleasures where you can get them. Besides, the more rattled Luke gets, the more likely he is to make a mistake. Superman arrives at the mountain, but as Luke predicted, and I can't believe he's that obtuse, he can't find the cave through the lead shielding.
Stop staring at me.
Take it easy, Luke. This is a bad time to blow a gasket. Even if Superman can't see you, he might hear you.
For that matter, if I yell real loud, he'll hear that, too. We'll never bother to explain why he doesn't hear us talking.
Shut him up, Al.
You know, I can tell you're nervous. Because if you weren't nervous, you'd be picking up a...
Picking a what? These? Thanks for reminding me.
As I said, the more rattled he gets, the more likely he is to make a mistake. Dan just warned him that Superman might be able to hear him. Guess what? He heard you.
You won't need that anymore.
It was Luke's idea, the whole thing.
I know, you just came along for the ride.
Don't look at me. I slept through the whole thing. It was all Luke. So you'll let me go, right? Why, of course we will. Eventually. Clark is on TV giving Dan the award. He says, I have a special message for Tim Grayson.
Tim, I hope you're as proud of your dad today as the rest of us are, because we feel that we have a right to be proud. But there's more to it than that. Dan has certain rights, too. Dan and other men like him who've paid their debt to society and now only ask a chance to prove themselves, the chance of a lifetime. Let's not make them spend that lifetime in the shadow. Because Dan and other men like him feel that they only want an opportunity to take their place in life, to make their homes, raise their children, make their community a better place to live in. Well, Dan has done all these things. Just because he was a convict once doesn't mean he's any different now. In fact, we think he's something kind of special.
He's not wrong, but I think I said it better and more concisely. Then again, he's a newspaper reporter. He gets paid by the word. I don't. Thanks for watching, kids. And remember, clicking that like button is cool. Subscribing is even cooler. Leaving a comment is as cool as the coolest person you know. And becoming a patron makes you almost just like Superman. So don't hesitate. Do it today. Until next time.